My name is Daniel Ostrowski, and I am the agriculture and horticulture agent here in Caswell County. And Clint?
I'm Clint Cardy. I'm the livestock and forage agent here in Caswell County, and we got Anas with us too.
Yes, my name is Anas Banner. I'm a small farms agent in Caswell County as well.
All right, so I'll go and share my screen. So tonight, what we're going to cover is idea development, goal setting, identifying your farm strengths and weaknesses, some assets, and then some additional information resources that are available for your farm. So as we get started here, these are a couple pictures from my own farm. So time is your biggest investment, and how much do you have? So the picture right here on the left side of the screen, this was either a Saturday or Sunday morning, I think it was. And this is 3 trees that fell on our fence. And basically you're gonna be inconvenienced at the most inconvenient times. So that's the way that always works out. We had animals in this pasture, so the trees had to come off as quick as possible, get the fence back up. And then we do all of our own hay, so it's pretty manual, takes a lot of time. So I work full time, my brother-in-law works full time, and so does my father-in-law. So we're kind of, after work, we go home and go back to work. So a lot of this is your time, and it's just something that you need to be prepared for. Is this isn't a venture that doesn't call for you a lot of time. So time is your biggest investment. How much time do you have, and will this farm be part of your income source, or is it more, we don't want to say the term hobby farm, but is it just a project that you might want to work on? Or so Daniel, if you'll go ahead with that first polling question. So if you would just answer, how much of this are you looking to get out of it? Is it just something to cover small expenses, or the tax of the land, or something like that to keep the land in the family? Is it a large part of your income, or is this just kind of a project on the side? So we got 50%, just small expenses, maybe just cover the taxes of what's going on in the farm. A good large portion of people want to keep it as an income, and then we have just the side project or hobby, which is great. We like everybody here and everybody learning the same stuff. So this helps us as we move forward with the presentation of kind of what to focus on. And what are your goals for your farm or your land? We're going to get into that as we move forward, but just keep that in the back of your mind. And then also what type of farm you want to have. So your time is worth something. So why does this keep popping up? Daniel, can you go with poll number 2? So if you could tell us, how much time per week are you preparing to devote to your farm or your land? That also would help us as we move forward with this project. All right, so looks like everybody's willing to put a good bit of time in, so that's good. It takes a lot of it. I think everybody that's here or is getting into it realizes that, which is nice to see. So let's stop that and move on. So if you're going to make an income off of this venture, you need to track your time, because that's how you can track for scale. So what that means is if you're not keeping, you're not, you might not be paying yourself right now off of the farm or your business. But if you're not tracking that time of how long it takes you to, feed the livestock, or, pick a row of peppers, or, cut a row of flowers and bunch so that you're ready for, for the farmer's market. if you don't keep track of that, of how long it takes you to do it, or keep track of your time for various tasks, you can't scale, as in hire an employee and then expect to know how much you need to pay that person, or figure on, you know, if they're being efficient at the job that they're performing. So you may not, even if you're not paying yourself, you know, a wage out of this business or anything like that, you need to be at least tracking and writing down what it takes you to do certain tasks. Because if you do want to scale up someday, or hopefully you do reach that potential to hire on a part-time employee or something like that to carry the load, you know, you need to figure on how much you're going to have to pay that person per the amount of hours it takes them to do a task. So, and also with setting your goals, be realistic. You know, a realistic goal, I think, for most people starting out in a farm business is making a profit by year 2. Depending on what you're getting into, you know, sometimes year 3, depending on if you're doing livestock. You know, if you get some bred heifers and then that heifer has a calf 9 months later, and then, you know, that calf takes a year and a half or 2 years to grow out until you're going to sell it as freezer beef to someone, you know, you just hit 3 years. So be realistic with your goals. You know, don't expect to make a profit on the first year if you're getting into something that's going to take you 2 years before you even see any money out of it. So don't settle, and hold yourself accountable. I think everybody should have a written plan and stick to it. The best way to, you know, to stick to a plan is to write it down and hold yourself accountable. And don't, you know, don't let yourself off easy if you don't, you know, get a task done. Can you go with that third question, Daniel? And I'll keep talking. You should have 1-year goals, 3-year goals, 5-year goals, and 10-year goals. If you would answer this poll question while I'm talking, you know, 1-year goals are, you know, simple things. 3-year goals are bigger projects. 5-year goals are, you know, large projects and where you see yourself in 5 years. Do you want to be able to, you know, hire, you know, or if your child is graduating from high school and you want to have them a job on the farm in 3 years or 5 years, you know, write that down, make sure, because that's how you hold yourself accountable. And you can keep going back and looking at your goals to go, you know, plan with your mission, because your goals, yeah, they're going to change over time. But if you don't write your goals down when you're first starting, in 5 years, you're going to forget what your goals were, and you might not be on the track that you thought you would be on. So it's good to write stuff down for sure. And then also have weekly and monthly goals. Get a whiteboard. We have a whiteboard at our farm that hangs in the hallway of our house. And my wife likes to tell me the quicker I get things done, the easier it is to erase off the whiteboard. Because if you've ever used whiteboard dry erase markers, they come off a whole lot easier in a week than versus when you know, the marker's been sitting on there for a year, you can't really get it off. So the whiteboard is definitely a huge help to us on our own farm. And also, you know, even in our office, we have to have written plans of work and things like that to make sure we're, you know, we're following the guidelines that we've actually set for ourselves to make sure that we're being successful and holding ourselves accountable. So if you get out of nothing else from my presentation, just get a whiteboard. It'll be a great thing for your farm business. So the type of farm, basically you can do whatever you want to do. But if you're not passionate about it, then it's, you know, in the long run, it's not going to work out. And we've seen that quite a bit, you know, through extension. Is somebody plants a plant, or, you know, a certain type of crop, or they get a certain type of livestock because they think that, yeah, you know, it's a good money making, you know, way to do stuff if you plant that certain crop. But if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to want to go out and actually do the work and be profitable. So figure out what you're passionate about. I just have these things up here. So I'm passionate about cows. This is our family farm. Down in the middle picture, that's me, and my dad's driving the tractor. We're planting a new crop. That's a new hayfield we're seeding. So, and then my daughter is on the left with her pony. So the things I'm passionate about is You know, my number one goal is passing the farm on to the next generation, keeping the farm profitable so that my kids have the opportunity to farm if they want to come back to the farm and do that as, you know, with their life. Um, so, you know, the cows are, you know, my main day-to-day stuff of what I really get excited about. My wife, she does a lot with horses. That's her passion. And we've become pretty successful and profitable with our farm because we don't mind going out and feeding horses and cows on Christmas morning because, you know, it's just part of our life and it's, you know, how we kind of, you know, we're living our dream basically. So you got to be passionate about what you're growing or else you're not going to want to go out on Christmas morning and do the work or go out in the rain when it's yucky. And then the other stuff is, how does your farm land look? How does it lay? What type of soil do you have? These are all factors of how successful different crops and animals and things like that will be on your farm. And so you need to take a soil test and send those in and get the results of what you need. But you can do one thing or you can do everything. It's up to you. But what we found so far in our extension line of work is if the person isn't passionate about what they're doing, then they usually 9 times out of 10 aren't successful because they don't want to, you know, put their boots on and go outside. So Daniel's going to talk about assets. So I think this, you know, the way your land looks, lays, and the type of soil is kind of what he's going to get into. So I'll stop sharing my screen.
All right, thanks, Clint. And we just wanted to say that if anybody has questions or wanted to ask something specific, you can turn on your camera, turn on your microphone, ask us a question, or if you want, you can type it in the chat box if that is more your style. But we would love to, if we were in person, we'd all be talking back and forth and introducing ourselves. And we know that's hard to try and replicate when we're all digital.
Hey, can you run that other poll, that last poll? I forgot to run it. To see
Yeah.
what kind of farms people are thinking about doing.
Yeah, so if you guys, excellent job responding to the poll questions. If you could just respond to this last one, that would be great.
So this is just to give us an idea of moving forward, because most people on here are actually in our county. So it helps us be able to put you in categories on our computers of different things that come from NC State or, different resources that we can send you. And then also, if, you do call us out for on-farm visits, we're prepared going in of what you have on your mind or what we think, your avenue you want to go to.
So looks like everyone's very diverse, which is great. I assume you guys can all see this poll. So it looks like everyone wants to participate in a little bit of everything, which is good. Because if every single person wanted to do livestock, then I wouldn't have a job. So go plants.
For those that answered other, can you type in the chat box what other stuff that, because we're just always trying to figure out and learn, and what other things you might be growing.
So if there's no immediate questions, I'm going to go ahead and start my presentation. So tonight I'm going to be talking about assets. And the reason why we chose the word assets for this presentation specifically is that we find that it's not often used in agriculture other than like large agribusiness type settings to talk about the things that we have on our farms and like the various components of a farm. And it's a great way to think about what you have and what you might need when going forward with an entrepreneurial pursuit. So something you want to do, you can kind of boil it down to the assets that you have and that you might need in order to be successful. So I broke down assets here to 3 different types of assets, and I want to go through each of those to kind of help you brainstorm when you're sitting down thinking of how you want to do your farm. So the 3 types of assets that I came up with are tangible assets, intangible assets, so the opposite of a tangible asset, and then environmental assets. So tangible assets, I think, are things that immediately come to mind when we think about, what we have on a farm or what we own, kind of. It's like, oh, we have a barn out there with a concrete floor, or we have a couple pickup trucks. Around here, people would say, well, I have 5 tobacco curing barns. And the thing about tangible assets is that sometimes they're easy to overlook, and this is apparent if you have a new farmer who buys a piece of land with no assets on it. It might just be soil. And to think of the amount of money you would have to spend to get an asset that someone else might be taking for granted. For instance, if you have that old barn in the corner of your lot that you kind of think of, oh, that's not really good for anything. Well, for a small farmer who just purchased a piece of property, in order to build that same exact barn would be a huge business expense. So if you kind of reopen your eyes to see that actually that is an amazing asset that I already have that I wouldn't need to purchase, that could really help you out in envisioning this business going forwards. For instance, another example would be tobacco curing barns. With this current hemp boom, and I don't want to, specifically encourage people to do specific crops, but with the hemp boom, there was a need for people to be able to dry all of this hemp. And all of a sudden, a curing barn, which was, a very commonplace thing in the tobacco belt, became this amazing asset where it's like, yeah, we just have a couple curing barns, but in order to buy new curing barns to cure hemp would be an astronomical entry cost for someone. So yeah, refocusing how you're thinking about these things can really work to your advantage when starting your business. And one other important thing that often is taken for granted is a stable and fast internet connection. I think the pandemic has really highlighted where we do not have fast internet. And so if you did have fast internet, that is an amazing asset that you have that you already started out with. Now, in order to identify your assets, sometimes it's maybe not as clear as, we have 4 pickup trucks, those are our assets. So I would recommend, walking around your property with a pad of paper and writing down the things you do have. I think many farms that have been around for a long time have, I don't know the exact proper terminology, but the junk pile, the area where there's all this stuff. And I often found when I was farming that can be one of your biggest assets. You break something and you walk out there and you say, oh, I can scavenge this, bearing that I had for some reason and put it on this thing. So, if you kind of write down those ideas as assets, or say you had 15, 55-gallon drums, those are assets that you have that can be practical for starting your business. And so writing those down can really help you kind of start to think of them as assets rather than just, a pile of junk. Now, another great way is to learn from your neighbors. People are very creative. I know a lot of you have seen other farmers, what they're up to, and can, learn from what other people are doing. Right now, it's a little bit more difficult just because people, need to course or listen to COVID-19 restrictions. But going on farm tours, Extension will put on farm tours to help people go and just see other farms and get a little tour. And it's a lot easier to learn from someone else's mistakes than to make them yourselves. Now, a famous person, Clint Carty, once said, "If it's free, it's for me." And I really like that quote when it comes to assets, because if you already own that thing, that is worth way more than if you would need to purchase something else. Kind of like with the barn, the amount of money you'd have to spend, or if you needed to take a loan, you're going to have to pay interest on a loan to build that thing. So things that are free or things you can repurpose. Clint earlier was talking about, well, if you could kind of hobble together a greenhouse area that would work well from wood that you had, yeah, it may be a little different, but that is a cheaper asset than having to buy a brand new hoop house or greenhouse. Now so these are all tangible assets, or ways that I'm thinking of identifying the tangible assets you have. Now the other half of that is intangible assets. So these are things that maybe not be as physical in nature. And the first one that I was thinking of that I wasn't quite sure if it's tangible or intangible is proximity to a busy road. Now that's something if people wanted to do farm stands or need anything that needs, an outward facing public appearance, that can be an amazing asset that you have that you didn't actually realize was an asset. You might not like all the busy cars driving by your house, but if you could get 5% of them to stop and buy your product, well, that's actually the best asset that you have. Another great intangible asset that people often don't value is the education that they have prior to starting whatever business it is. If you have a degree in anything, or you have any certification in anything, or even if you've worked in any job before, these are all amazing assets that you have and different knowledge that you can leverage to really improve your business. And along with that are the relationships that you've made in those scenarios. So your friendships, your family, co-workers, things like that. These are all very helpful. For instance, we went on a farm call to someone who worked with lots of people in Raleigh, and he was thinking, well, if I raised cattle, I have plenty of people in Raleigh who would buy a half steer. So all of a sudden, boom, there's his whole business. He has friends who would buy half steers. This could help pay for the property. So, kind of thinking into, who have you met throughout your lifetime, and who kind of have you met and know, and this can really help in evolving your business. Along with that is, just your personal qualities. If you are, really outgoing, or maybe you're more quiet, or, these are all components of our personalities that are actually amazing assets towards a business. No matter what your strengths or weaknesses are, working, understanding how you conduct your business and or interact with other people can really help you improve your business in turn. And then the last intangible asset that I think is probably more apparent now than ever before is a brand. If you can create an idea or a brand or a following around your specific product or farm or things like that, that can propel your business very far. And I know people will say, well, I'm not, tech savvy, or I have a difficult time, navigating technology. And that's something where, as extension agents, we would love to help you improve that. We would love to teach you. If you really needed to market on Facebook Marketplace right now, we would love to sit you down and explain how to use Facebook and help you with that, because that is something that, that might be, you're thinking, oh, extension, they like help with fertilizer and cattle and things like that. Well, like, this is marketing that's going to make your business successful. So we would love to help you, work on those just as much as we would, get a fertilizer plan set up or things like that. Now, in order to brainstorm these intangible assets, and I touched on these a little bit, talking about what you did before you started that farm business. And that, that's a great place to start, because you were obviously doing something maybe before, you're doing what you want to do now. Again, sorry, I got a little excited and I talked a little forward in my slides. But again, so what are you as a person that makes you an invaluable part of your business? So one thing I wanted to bring up about intangible assets is that the communities that we exist in are often the greatest intangible assets that we have. And I think it's really easy to take those for granted because, we have a day-to-day existence. We're interacting with people all the time. And, we forget that that's kind of the fabric that makes us unique and successful as humans, is that we can rely on our other community members. But I think we need to now invest in that even more. We need to really cross these divides and reach out, because that's going to help these farm businesses be successful. If you're starting a small business, you might not have access to a specific type of tillage equipment. Possibly down the road, there's a farmer who has that piece of tillage equipment. And if you were friends with them and, made kind gestures and baked them bread or something like that, they would be more than happy to loan you their disc, which, that would be a huge asset you would not have to purchase if you had that relationship. Now, the reason you may be wondering, why do I have this interesting photo to go along with this quote? So this is lichen, and I actually had an individual come in from the county to ask me to identify what was growing on his bushes. And so you'll see lichen all over the place. And lichen kind of is this papery looking, it almost looks like kind of like moss, and you see it growing on bushes and older trees and things like that. And lichen's fascinating because it's not actually a single organism. It's algae that's growing in a partnership with a fungus. So the fungus is kind of what's giving it shape. And then the algae exists on the fungus. And then the fungus attaches itself to a tree. So the algae, in order to, it gets a better, location to collect some sunlight. It's giving the fungus a little bit of its carbohydrates that it gets from the sun. And it's this amazing partnership. So, that's an example of these collaboration and this partnership that makes each individual far better than if you just branch out by yourself. You're going to go start your farm by yourself with no help from anybody. And again, I'm going to give another plug for Extension. Let us be part of your community, and we'd be glad to help you. In, if you have a problem, please email us or call us, and we can kind of help leverage the collective knowledge of the community through the university to try and help you in the best way we can. Now, the third type of assets that I think are probably our most important set of assets are environmental assets. So these are often overlooked as well, because you're thinking of the things I need in order to, start a farm or marketing or things like that. But actually, what you already have is pretty extraordinary. So your soil type, if you have a piece of property, what type of soil is there? Where is it located? How does it drain? Things like that. And so when you're starting a farm, kind of understanding what you have there is a great place to start to really get a handle on your assets, your environmental assets. Now, another asset environmentally that's very important, that is really easy to just take advantage of and benefit from, is all just the interactions that are occurring constantly that make what we do possible. We go out and look at a lot of pastures, and oftentimes, grass seems to just grow. It seems to rain and grass seems to grow. But in order for that to happen, there's an extraordinary amount of work that's going on in our soils, the nutrient cycling. It has to be raining, all the seasonality, pollination, reseeding. So really thinking of that as an asset can help you feel more positively about, what you already have on your farm and the things that are already working for you. The climate where you live is sometimes an asset that we try and kind of change as much as we can. We often dream of maybe growing citrus or, avocados or something like that. But understanding that the climate where we live is actually a huge asset. So yeah, we may not be warm enough in the winters to grow citrus, but because of where we are, we can grow so many other things. I'm originally from California, and in California, it never rains. And so when I'm out here and it rains, that is an extraordinary asset North Carolinians have, is that it rains here. Water just falls from the sky, and those Californian farmers have no idea what that's like. So, you realize you have an amazing asset that other people do not have. Another asset is the rivers and the areas surrounding your farm, ponds, buffer strips, hedgerows, trees. If you've ever worked out in a field during the heat of the day, that tree, that big giant oak tree on the side of your field, is probably the biggest asset you have. You can have a nice shade tree where you eat your lunch. Sometimes you make sure you do the work by the field that has the good tree. So seeing these as assets rather than just things that go along with your property can also help you think about what you have already when starting your farm business. So how do you take these environmental assets that you think of are kind of just on your property, and how do you leverage those to help propel your business? So one thing that I learned when I was working to manage pests in a large field was sitting down in a field and just watching what was happening for about 10 minutes. Um, there's an enormous amount of stuff that is just occurring all around us in the soil, out in the fields, that it's really easy to walk past and miss. If you're driving by your fields to check them, you're probably missing about 80% of what's going on in a field. The second you walk out in that field, you'll realize, oh, wow, there's a lot of lady beetles. Oh, what are they eating? Oh, they're eating aphids. Oh, I have aphids. But from the road, you probably had no idea that there were lady beetles eating aphids. So taking the time to sit down and watch what's going on is going to really help you understand how to leverage those environmental assets. Now, another part of that is seeking to understand the implications of your actions on that environment. This is something that, we all see. Things that we do have an interaction on what occurs in nature. So, if you try disking when it's too wet or something, you might say, oh, wow, my soil is much more hard to work next time. Or, oh, if I disc when it was really cold, that changes how it works. So, we always have to be, people who are learning. We have to really open our eyes and have a kind of like a childlike curiosity to understand everything that we do on that environment, because ultimately that is what's going to make our business successful as farmers or as agricultural entrepreneurs. We're really working with nature and the environment to produce a crop or to produce a product, whether it be cut flowers or lamb or a variety of things. So one thing with that is always try to prioritize the health of your soil. And it doesn't matter what you're growing, what kind of product you're producing. If you prioritize the health of your soil, you are always going to have more success than if you neglect your soil. If your soil needs limestone and you know that it needs limestone, but you do not see that as a good investment, you are always going to be suffering from not having that proper pH in your soil. Or if you see the grass in your pasture as something that just comes every single year and you don't have to do anything to maintain that or work with the soil to work on it, that's going to be hindering your business going forward. So with that, I just want to end with this last quote. We are the people of the earth, and it is part of us. What befalls the earth befalls all the sons and daughters of the earth. So again, focusing on the farms and the land that we tend and that we are stewards of that land will ultimately make us more successful as business people.
I'd like to add something, especially when it comes to livestock people, because that's more of my background. Is it always, as Daniel hit, is soil is your number one asset on your farm. And if you don't take care of it, it's not going to take care of you. And whether you have, cows, sheep, goats, horses, whatever you're having, you're not growing, you don't grow cows, you don't grow sheep, you don't grow goats, you grow grass, and you happen to have those animals that eat it. Because without that grass, you wouldn't have them. So you're a grass grower, and the eaters of your grass happen to be cows, or they happen to be sheep, or they happen to be goats. If you don't take care of your soils or fertilize your pastures, or make sure your pastures are at the proper pH so that whatever grass you're trying to grow is as happy as it can be and accept all the nutrients, you're not going to be long before you having to start feeding hay in April and May, which are your best months of growth for grass, because you're not taking care of your soils. So that's what I like to add to, is it doesn't matter, even if you're growing animals, your soil is still your number one asset.
Can you hear me? Daniel, can you hear me?
I can.
You're good.
Okay. All right. So my parts will be to share with you on the resources that are available, especially in the county or probably close to Caswell County. So the first the first resource we're gonna talk about is NRCS, which is part of the USDA. So NRCS they have a few programs to help farmers to not only start their businesses, but to increase their business. So the first program is ACEP program. So they help farmers to protect, restore, or to enhance the wetlands or grasslands. So the second program is EQUIP program, Environmental Quality Incentive Program, which is probably the most used program for small farmers. In this program, two parts are most important: the high tunnel program and irrigation program. For the EQUIP program, USDA usually accept applications the year before. For example, for this, last November was the last time they accepted application for 2021. So 21 is when they're going to open the applications for year 2022. The EQUIP program gives usually about 75% of the cost share program. So if the high tunnel costs, for example, $4,000, the USDA might take care of the 75% of the $4,000, and then the farmer will be responsible for the rest of it. But for a group of farmers, the historically underserved farmers, the beginning and limited resource farmers, American Indian tribes, and veterans, they usually can get up to 90% of the cost share program for the EQUIP programs, which is the high tunnel and irrigation. So for irrigations, they will give you the cost share to get a well, because if you have high tunnel, there's no way you can irrigate. There's no rain going through your high tunnel, so you need a way to irrigate your crop. So the well is the best way to irrigate inside of your high tunnel. But there are a few requirements for farmers to be able to get those cost share programs. The first one and most important one is you have to be farming for a minimum of 3 years. So they don't give programs for you to start a farm, but they want to make sure that you are well established after 3 years so they can assist you. So the second agency in USDA is FSA, the Farm Service Agency. So the first step of having a farm is to be able to get a farm number. So if all those programs we talk about, the EQUIP program, for example, if you don't have a farm number, you can be farming for 10 years, but if you don't have a farm number, there's no way they can let you apply for any USDA program. So the first thing you have to do when you have a farm is to get a farm number. So USDA is in charge of that. Beside that, they do the farm loan programs, they do different conservation programs, they do disaster programs after hurricanes. They are the ones in charge of the programs. They also have organic and GAP certification or cost share programs. So another resource we have is research stations. So we have a lot of research stations in North Carolina, but the closest one to us is the Upper Piedmont Research Station in Breesville. So they do cattle, they do tobacco, they do grapes, they do honeybee production, and they also do canola for oil. So usually farmers can go, they have field days that they can, they have field days, farmers can go. But I think if we organize a group, they can accept us. But now with COVID, I'm not sure if the research station is open to visitors for now. But if it's not, I'm pretty sure soon, hopefully, we'll be able to visit the research station. Another resource that we have is the North Carolina A&T Research Farm. So in Greensboro, at the research farm, they have high tunnels. Inside of high tunnel, they have strawberries, they have gingers, lettuce, peppers. They have small ruminants. They have hemp, tomatoes, hogs, cows, as well as poultry. So farmers can visit the research farm and see what they're doing to be able to try to replicate all these research to their own farms. They have field days in June. So usually it's in June. So hopefully by June, the COVID situation will be cleared, so we can organize a trip from Caswell County to go to the field day in Greensboro. These are the pictures of farmers visiting the research farm. So they ask questions, they visit the plants, and they try to take all these research back. The next one is North Carolina Department of Agriculture. So that's where we send soil samples. For those who are farming already, they know that. They have agronomic division where they can assist farmers as well. They have co-share programs like GAP certification program sometime. So they assist farmers paying for the GAP program. They do pesticide trainings, and they do have regulations as well to oversee. So a few non-government organizations like RAFI USA. RAFI USA is assisting farmers. They have technical assistance, but they usually give up grants for farmers. So this is one place you probably need to look at for grants for farmers. The Farm Link is part of the extension, but they assist farmers to look for farms, and they help farms to look for farmers. So they're trying to connect farmers to farms. Growers associations are a good assets, good resource for farmers. They usually organize meetings, trainings, conferences. So CFSA is one of the organizations that help usually small farmers and try to be sustainable, and those who are trying to go into organic farming. Another asset is the Piedmont Community College in Yanceville. So there's a program, CEAD project, that's coming at the community college. It will have two components: the farm component and the food hub component. The farm components, the new farmers or those who are trying to learn about farming can get some plots and go through a training and learn how to farm, so they can go and start their own farm business. The food hub components, if you are familiar with food hubs, the food hubs are basically another markets for farmers. So usually farmers will come together so they can sell as a group to bigger institution. So that's coming. So another resource is the Ag Business Program at the community college. So they have different classes, soil science class, plant science class, Ag Business Management classes, and Ag Mechanics classes as well at the community college. So those are classes. Um, if you want, you can take. Um, so the last resource, not the least, is the extension. So we are part of two university, NC State and A&T. So we have specialists on campus. They are doing research. They have publications, and we are here. So sometimes we have to talk to them, get information to you guys. So, but they're not here, but we are here to represent them. So if you have any questions that we can answer directly here, so we go back and get in touch with specialists to see how we can solve your problem. So we also do farm visits. So if you have a problem on your farm that you can, maybe it's a bug you can identify, or maybe your crop is dying or anything. So you can call the extension. We can come take a look at your farm and see what's going on. If there's a problem we can solve, we will. If not, if you have to take a soil sample, we take a soil sample, send it to NCDA. Or if you have to take a tissue sample, we will take tissue sample, send it to the lab. So we'll get the results, and then from there, we will find hopefully a solution for the situation. So these are a few resources that we can definitely use in this area. So that's all. If you have questions, concerns, we can take questions. All right.
So tonight's more of just a soft introduction, and then Thursday night we're going to get more into business planning, the finances, cash flow, all that good stuff. But we had a good bit of stuff to kind of get us through introductions. So I see a couple things in the chat. So Tom Barnes said, "How do I apply for a farm ID?" Didn't find a link. So that's done through FSA. You'll get a farm number through them. You have to call whatever local FSA office, whatever county you're in. And so basically your farm number is how you can do your crop reports. And then also, makes you eligible for different USDA programs. So the best way to go about that is to give them a call. They'll ask you a couple questions. Probably if you have to come in person, they'll have you bring your deed to your property or something like that. And they can actually look up if there's an existing farm ID number on your parcel, then they will transfer it into your name. But if you don't have an existing farm ID number, then they'll create a new one for you. So that's, some kind of, it's hard now with COVID-19 with in-person stuff. But our local FSA offices downstairs, they're always there answering the phone. They can do stuff through the window of their office, or they've been pretty creative. So,
and that's what we found we were working with them, is that oftentimes there is already a farm ID for your property, and it's just a matter of transferring it over to your name to make you eligible for the programs. Rebecca Page posted in there that anyone interested in selling at the Caswell Farmers Market this season. So again, we're talking about assets. We have a farmers market in our community. That's an extraordinary asset, stopping people coming in to purchase your product. So definitely, if you have a product that you'd like to sell, get in. Hi, Rebecca. It's been a long time. Get into contact with the Caswell Local Foods Council, and they'll be glad to give you all the information you could possibly need about selling at the farmers market. So I'm just going to do a quick show of what we have for tomorrow evening, or sorry, Thursday evening. So Thursday evening in the session, we'll be talking a little bit more about the business components of starting this farm. This one we talked a little bit, when we were doing our brainstorming session, we called it ideation, or kind of, brainstorming about, what are your passions? What do you like doing? What do you have on your farm? What do you have available? And then this next session is a little bit more the nitty gritty, business planning, marketing, finances, and cash flow.
So also for Thursday, kind of be, if you want to remain shy, that's fine. But if you'd like to share what you want to do, and kind of we can go through some different scenarios and things like that. A little bit more participation on Thursday. Try to get the Zoom juices flowing. So hopefully we get to see everyone there. Our emails are in the chat. Our office phone number is in the chat. Feel free to call us anytime. Email us with anything. We're always out and about. We're not afraid to stop in and see what's going on and help you identify any issues or things like that. And get your soil test done.